Hey, you're listening to B3, the Blue Banners podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick Strauss.
And I'm James Hughes.
Hell yeah, you are. And you are a listener of the podcast. It's been a hell of a week. You know, most of the people that I talk to during my day job and at school, it's tough to muster even like I'm doing fine. You know, it's a lot of people are exhausted. And I wanted to know maybe how you felt, James.
Yeah, I feel like it's about that time in the semester where everyone is starting to more or less hit that wall. But I feel like that's a huge aspect from just growing is once you hit your limit, you push that limit just a little more. So where the next time you have that downtime, that's when you really kind of see how much you've grown. You kind of see how progressive you have been in this time. It's just like the sink or swim mentality.
Yeah.
You just keep swimming. If you have the mindset that you're going to drown, you're going to keep swimming. And that's the same thing in school at this point. If you have that mindset that you're going to fail, you're going to keep trying hard.
Can I be honest? You're scaring the shit out of me right now. Like, oh, God, I'm going to drown.
Just keep
this
swimming.
Is not good. Oh, man. Okay. So, like, to me, these weeks have just been, like, it's been gruesome. And I can't decide if it's just because I'm not getting enough sleep, but I feel like sleep's a big part of it. And it begs the question, like, is 8 hours even enough? Because I'll swear to God, I'll get 8 hours. I'll get 9 hours, and I'll wake up and I feel like garbage, dude. Last weekend I slept on Saturday night, and I woke up like Sunday afternoon. I slept for like 14 hours without even trying.
And I would imagine too, with you being a Sagittarius, you have a lot of that work ethic. And so, if you look at, you're only sleeping 8 hours, right? So that's 16 hours that you're awake, that you're conscious. And if you have a lot of stuff going on, then you're having so much mental focus going on in that time that really 8 hours isn't enough to recuperate because it's just like a straight job at that point.
So it's interesting you bring astrology into this. James Hughes, he is the horoscope master for the Blue Banner. If you look in the back of most issues, you'll see like a really nice, well made out spread of the horoscopes. And I do want to talk to you about that. As you mentioned, I'm a Sagittarius, and I want to talk to you about my own my own astrology too, because I have questions and whatnot. But basically, can you give can you give like a basic rundown of like sun sign, moon sign, first house or rising? I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Just so we can catch the viewers up, because we've had, to full transparency to the viewers, this is a conversation that we tried to have before, and due to technical difficulties, we're now having to have it again. But it is so interesting. In fact, I think I've kept it in the forefront of my mind. So, but anyway, like I said, can we let's do the sun thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel like sorry, man, like put you on the spot with that.
Oh no, this is all, pretty much all I think about, all I look at. Real quick, as we go into this astrological conversation, remove the whimsical idea of astrology having to do with astronomy and having to do with the universe and having to do with questions that we don't have answers of. Look at astrology as more of a psychological or sociological standpoint. There's certain patterns, human characteristic patterns that happen that I feel like are prevalent no matter what the label system is.
Yeah, and you know, that's the magical aspect of it. You know, a lot of people who subscribe to a very scientific point of view in life, they dismiss it, you know. It's odd that people are so quick to dismiss things because, as I'm sure that we're all about to find out, there's a little bit more validity to it than maybe we've been led to believe, you know. And but I think, yeah, would you say that is like the single biggest detriment to the field?
Oh yeah, I mean, people already they fear what they don't understand, and so once you give them something like that, it's really quick to dismiss it because they don't understand the science behind it. Well, there's a lot that we don't understand the science to in the universe. What people do connect to are those, like I said, the psychological and sociological patterns that happen with the signs. And when people read their horoscope in the paper, you know, I can't name one paper off the top of my head that I've read that hasn't had the horoscopes in them. and these have existed since the Aztecs. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I mean the horoscopes are the shit, man. Like that is like it's a long-standing tradition, and I swear I will not see it tarnished by the non-believers. So let's do this.
Yeah, the idea is to make people believers. And if not necessarily in astrology, then believers in yourself, because the more you learn about what this sign does or what this planet does, you learn more about yourself specifically. Even if you're dismissing the science that quote unquote isn't there, those traits are still prevalent in you. We'll start with the sun sign.
Yes, sir.
The sun sign is, if you were to go on autopilot, it is your essence. It is your end-all, be-all, your expressive self in this world, in society. And so your moon sign is going to be your emotional response inside. It is your internal monologue, that voice you have going on in your head.
Yeah. A lot of people call that like your inner self. Like some people might even call that your consciousness.
Exactly. And a large part of that. So the world around you, you're perceiving through your moon sign, you're reacting through your sun sign.
Okay, so it's almost like there's less control with the sun.
Exactly.
Or at least the illusion of control. I feel like there's not as much control at all.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on how conscientious you are, is going to depend on how aware of your moon sign and those traits that you are. And so the more you analyze yourself, the more you'll start to notice these tendencies and these traits of whatever your moon sign is. And then your rising, which is your first house, which is where the sun was when you were born on that horizon. And that's going to be your mask that you put on to acquaintances, to new friends, to people that you don't really know. It's that.
It's like what you think is proper.
Exactly.
You know? Okay.
It is exactly that. It's how you feel like, it's your view on the world and how you feel like you belong in the world, your place in the world.
Interesting. So like that could even be described as like an ego of sorts. Like,
yeah,
ego is in the sense that it's like the part of you that has to manage desires and society. You know, like maybe not. Maybe I'm getting a little too complicated here.
No, I mean you're right on board. The only thing about that is, it's essentially we'll say it's a light that's not going to stand on its own. It's going to go through that sun sign filter.
Oh, okay.
So if me and you have the same, you're Sagittarius, I'm Aquarius. Let's say we had the same rising or the same ascending sign. What's going to happen is, for instance, we'll just say it's Libra. So you're going to have a Libra pull on your Sagittarius self. And then for me, it's going to be a Libra pull on my Aquarius self. So my Aquarius tendencies are going to have, like in a group setting, my Aquarius tendencies are going to have a Libra aspect to them. And then same thing with you with your Sagittarius. But that's not all there is. You start getting more specific. You have your Mercury sign, which is your view of work and your communication in the world and how you talk to people.
Okay.
And that's always going to be the sign before, the sign of, or the sign after your sun sign, because of how tight the orbit is of Mercury around the sun.
So it's planetary in that sense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if we look at the order of the planets and then we look at the order of the houses, or what would you call them? The different planets, right?
Yeah. So
okay. I guess like the metaphor is already there. Basically, like what comes first and what's in orbit closest is like those are the planets that'll be affecting you at that current point.
Exactly.
Right?
The 5 inner planets, the terrestrial planets, are going to have a lot stronger of an effect on your personality than the Jehovian planets on the outskirts of our solar system.
Do those have distinct attributes as well?
They do. But you look at how long their orbit is, they start to fall into more generational effects instead of personal effects. So, just for instance, everyone born in 1991 is going to almost have their Jupiter in Leo, and then their Saturn in Capricorn, because of how long. I think it's like 7.5 years for. I really could be wrong on this. I think it's 7.5 years for Jupiter to orbit around the sun.
That's why maybe through if you look at a block of time, everyone has a little bit in common, maybe.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or the way they think. You know, they say like the millennial generation is this. You know, Gen X's are this. and maybe that has some sort of pull on that.
Oh yeah,
Or some
absolutely.
sort of some symmetry at least. When I don't necessarily want to tell the viewers like to subscribe because of these coincidences, but I do want the viewers to maybe understand the symmetry behind it and maybe see the patterns, because that in itself is the ultimate like quote unquote evidence, maybe, you know. Um, but anyway, I was wondering, there's other systems of similar things like the Chinese calendars. I got the year of the rat, the dog, the pig, and I was wondering if that fell into some of the same reasoning as to why like the Jovian planets,
I'm not too sure how closely they follow the planets, but I will say that a lot of these pseudosciences are explaining the same energy effect.
Yeah,
It's just they're explaining it with different labels.
and that yeah, okay,
For me, the cool thing about astrology is the more you get into it, there's more specific categories of the facet of your personality. And then there's also, depending on the placement of the sun in a trine to your Mars and your Jupiter, is going to have a certain aspect of your personality. So when you were born, if you imagine a circle and you put Earth in the center of it, because that's where we're born and everything essentially follows around that method. If your sun and the planet Mars and the planet Jupiter make a triangle based off of the 12 zodiac signs, then that's going to have a unique combination. It's going to have a unique pull on your personality.
is this at any given point or at the moment you're born?
At the moment you're born. At any given point, too, but that gets a little harder to observe because you don't necessarily have the same, I don't want to say resources, but you're observing real time compared to when you were born. You have a lifetime of observations to kind of pull together.
Right. And so when you got into astronomy, was it mainly from like a curiosity point of view or like an observation, point of view? I want to talk a little bit about maybe how you got into it, and why.
Oh yeah, I've always been well with astronomy. I've always just been interested in the vastness of the universe. That kind of led me scientifically to that point of start looking at the universe. With astrology, I've always been somewhat interested in how you always see there's always people who know zodiac signs who can tell who or what someone is just by talking to them. And so just that
Is that real? Is that, I feel like that's like such a movie trope, right? But is that real?
Oh, no, it's definitely real. It's the same personality aspects that you're picking up on. And so the more I started looking into that, there's a couple of really cool websites out there that ask you to put in your name, where you were born, and the time that you were born, and it'll give you a birth chart. And that is exactly where the planets were when you were born.
Huh.
And so from there, I would just to learn more about myself, I would read, specifically my moon is Leo. So I would read what Aquarius and the sun is. And so I could pull apart what Aquarius is, pull apart what the sun traits are. Same thing with the moon. I could learn what Leo is specifically, and then learn what your moon traits are specifically, and do that all throughout the birth chart.
All right. You said Leo and Aquarius?
Yeah,
And those are like opposite signs, right?
absolutely, polar opposite.
So let's talk about the signs.
Okay.
The only reason I know that is because we had this conversation loosely before, but okay, so I know you got your elemental signs, like you got sun, water, air, and earth, right?
Yeah, fire, wind, water, air.
Straight up like Avatar nation
Exactly.
represent. Okay. Can you explain the signs, like what is what and why?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So a fire sign is going to be well, even then you can break them down to masculine and feminine on that aspect. And so your fire and your air are going to be the masculine traits. Your earth and your water are going to be the feminine traits. The masculine traits, air and fire, are more about the out. They're more about
Long pause.
yeah. You got to think about how exactly to word this. They're more of the, I don't necessarily say go-getters, but they are the ones who have the drive to push forward, whereas the water and earth signs are more of, I don't necessarily say protectors, but they're more of the ones who No, no, we can just cut this out and start at the.
I swear, if you break the fourth wall one more time.
Hey, this is the first time I broke the fourth wall.
Yeah, no, I think I've done it like 8 times already.
Okay, so we'll just kind of back up. So with the fire signs, they're going to be more ego-driven. They're going to be more proactive or more reactive in the way they approach the world. They are the experience people who learn specifically from experience. Put them in that situation, let them go through it, take a step back, and then from their ego, they'll be able to build from that and go from there. The air signs are more cerebral people. They are the people who use, I don't want to necessarily say intellect, but they use that aspect. Pure facts, pure patterns, pure identification aspects like that to progress through the world. They're very analytical in how they approach what they do. And then just like moving air, you don't have wind unless you have that air moving. And so unless they're moving, then it's just stagnant and then you don't have any progress there.
So we're talking about like maybe some type A traits with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you've gone over fire and air now. Water and earth?
Water is going to be, they are the emotionally receptive people. You hear commonly vibes coming from people or whatever. They're the people who can immediately identify and feel that level on a personal standpoint. So they're really good at if you're sad, they're probably going to be sad. They know you're sad. Like they'll know your emotional state better than you know yourself, especially if they know you pretty well. And so they're really good at kind of keeping the environment clean and keeping that happy. And then you have the earth signs, who are the practical signs. The practical people, they are the, no pun intended, the people who are typically down to earth. And they see things in a very realistic, very kind of, I don't want to say bland is the wrong word, but there's a very, very basic.
So we got some boring motherfuckers out here. I'm just kidding.
in a very, we'll say proactive way. They definitely keep things real in what they think and what they do. They keep people, I don't know, more natural.
Just kidding, water signs. But I would like to know, what are the water signs, fire signs, etc.? Like,
yeah. All right. So the fire signs are going to be Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. The air signs are going to be Libra, or Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And then the water signs are going to be Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Earth signs are Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo.
Word. So, guys, if you're interested, look yourself up. It's interesting. I think the biggest thing that I've learned from you personally is that a lot of these, like the signs, they overlap, and that creates a bigger picture, a more accurate picture. And I've been able to, let me back up. When I read your Sagittarius horoscopes, I'm often blown away at the accuracy. And I've since then found out that my sun sign, being Sagittarius, it matches with my moon sign and my rising sign. So that to me makes it's pretty obvious. That's why, like, when I see Sagittarius, I feel it on all levels.
Oh yeah.
What's up with that though? Is that weird? Like,
I mean, it's pretty uncommon. I just mean, or not specifically uncommon, but it's pretty rare to have that much influence of one sign, of one planet. It just happened to be where everything lined up when you were born.
So when I'm reading your horoscope, I'm reading it at a level where it's really resonating. You know what I'm saying? Like, but how do you cope with people who have like 3 different ones? You know, like, are they gonna have to go the extra mile and look past the sun sign and try and decipher this? Or,
well, I'll tell you a fun fact. If you specifically know your moon sign and you know your moon sign traits, or you know exactly what the moon kind of personality is affecting by that, then you can read. For me, if I'll read a Leo horoscope, I can relate it to my moon sign.
yeah.
But real quick, you were talking about you having Sagittarius on those 3 levels, those 3 big levels too, because your sun, moon, and ascending are typically referred to as your big 3.
Oh yeah.
One way that I look at it. So we'll call Sagittarius dark red, and just imagine paint or whatever. Your sun being the biggest influence, you're gonna have a big glob of that red paint. Your moon being Sagittarius, you're gonna have a smaller glob of that red paint, and then your ascending is also Sagittarius, so you're gonna have even more red paint there. Mix it all together, and I'm essentially just describing that red paint. You can do that with all of your planets. So for me, we'll say Aquarius is green. We'll say that Leo is red, like a lighter red, and then we'll say that Libra is blue. So you mix those together, and that's going to come up with a more or less unique color of your personality.
Okay. So, like, I was thinking, I think we were talking briefly about this. You could put, like, a descriptor in the top of the horoscope of, like, just what they do, right? And then people can kind of, like, read all three of their.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they'll read, like, if someone's got Sagittarius, Libra, and Gemini, right? Like, they can read all three and then, like, put them through basically, like, the calculation. Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Kind of. Okay. Like, and that in itself is the biggest thing that I did not know growing up, you know? Like, and I think a lot of people who dismiss what they've read in horoscopes don't know that.
Yeah, they just see it as that one sign, and it's very easy to read one paragraph about yourself and feel like it's leaving something out, or feel like it's all of them are relatable. But that's because you more or less have that sign in your chart and you're relating on that level on that day, but you haven't identified that, okay, that's my Venus, that's my love aspiration. And so you're reading that and you're feeling very lovey-dovey that day. And so whatever your Venus is in is going to resonate more than necessarily your moon or your sun.
Whatever my Venus is in is going to resonate.
Yeah.
Whatever my Venus is. I'm sorry. So
Enunciation on the V there.
yeah, Venus.
But
God, we just keep bringing it back to this vulgar bullshit, don't we? So anyway, you mentioned something to me about fringe.
about cusp signs.
Cusp, not fringe.
Yeah.
That's,
Well,
that's a pseudonym. No, that's not. God damn it! It's been a long. That's a synonym.
but I mean, you could still refer to people who were born on that. And so a cusp is typically people who were born. So we'll say that January, Aquarius ends, or Aquarius begins January 20th. So a cusp sign is someone who was born 3 days before or 3 days after that transition. So what's going to happen at that point, you're going to, let's say you're born January 23rd. You're going to have that strong Aquarian filter, main filter, that strong Aquarian essence. But there's traits from Capricorn that you're going to pick up on, and they're going to be true to your personality that just a straight Aquarian wouldn't have, or just a straight Capricorn wouldn't have. It's like you were almost like on a color wheel. You were born in between two primary colors, or in between two secondary colors.
That makes a lot of sense. But does that also mean that if you're born in the direct center of a period, if I was born in like direct center of what it meant to be Sagittarius, I don't know what day that would be, would that make me a stronger Sagittarius?
Yeah. It's just like a color wheel. You're born right there, truer to that color.
So it's almost like a spectrum, and like the signs are like going through
Exactly.
continuous kind of sine wave.
Exactly. This isn't proven science, but this is at least a little bit how I try to grasp my mind around astrology.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I think calling it pseudoscience, it does a little bit of disrespect because a lot of people keep that term in, like, low esteem. But at the same time, if you remove that negative correlation, something being pseudoscience isn't necessarily bad.
Exactly.
You know, and I think the more I talk about it, the more it resonates with me. I don't know, you know, I don't have any more proof than anybody else does. But that's why I wanted to have this conversation, really, was because when there's a stigma against something, people don't even listen to what's right in front of their face.
Right. And so, and again, that's one of those things that, I don't know, there's so many true patterns in people's personalities and their actions and reactions to certain situations that it's easy once you understand the signs and what they represent, and you understand the planets and their effects, then you can call people out on, all right, well, your Mercury has to be this, or your Sun has to be this, or your ascending has to be this.
Yeah, I mean, how do you justify people who just don't match?
You have the ability because life is free will. You have the ability to go against your tendencies or go against those patterns or whatever. But what's going to happen is there's an innate feeling that you have when you know you're doing something wrong, or is everything in the universe just doesn't seem to be lining up. You just kind of feel like you're out of place. You feel like you don't belong. You feel like your action's wrong. Even if no one's telling you, it's just resonating on that level.
You feel it. Yep.
Yeah, it's because you're going against your true character. You look at nature versus nurture. I don't like to see it as that battle. I like to see it as nature and nurture. Your nature being your astronomy or your astrological lineup, and then the nurture is going to be the situation that you're placed in. So you can react to it however you want, but to really have the best feeling, and I feel like the best outcome, you need to be true to yourself, and being true to yourself is understanding what those elements are.
Wow. I mean, I think so far you've done a pretty fantastic job of explaining like not only the basics but the reasons behind the basics. Mm-hmm. So I want to maybe change gears a little bit and ask you personally, like, how did you get into astrology?
I honestly, I just got out of a pretty serious relationship that I spent a good bit of time really dedicating myself to the idea of us as a couple, or my idea of who she wants, who she needs, all this stuff.
Right.
So once we ended, I became pretty codependent. Once we ended, it was more of a matter of I need to find myself kind of thing. And like I said, I've always had that slight interest in astrology, that kind of curiosity. Well, at this point, I had a really good friend who was also getting into astrology under his own account. And so we would ping ideas back and forth, or these observations we would go back and forth on. And I don't want to call it, borderline obsessed, but I got really, really into astrology and everything that it can do. And like I said, the more I read about just Aquarius and just the sun sign, I'm like, all right, that's pretty true. Read just about Leo and just about the moon sign. Okay, that's pretty true too. You can look up unique combinations. So you can look up specifically your sun and moon combination, and that's going to have a pretty interesting facet about yourself.
Yo, what's up with the moons? Because that has to do with like where the moon is when you're born, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to briefly go back to that. So if you're born on a new moon, you'll have the same sign as your sun sign, correct?
Absolutely. Because where the sun lines up, the moon is going to be in that same slither of...
Oh, dude, yeah, that makes total sense. Honestly, you can draw a line and go straight through the moon to the sun. Basically.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so by that logic, then like a full moon would be what?
The polar opposite. Like, you were talking about how Aquarius and Leo are polar opposites. Well, that means I was born on a full moon because the moon was exactly across from the sun.
And that's why people who are born on full moons are batshit crazy.
Yeah, because
I'm sorry.
Well,
are you batshit crazy?
You don't see on the inside what puts out on the outside. What I put on the outside.
Oh, man.
So I imagine in that sense, the two biggest pools that we have in our solar system, the sun and the moon, are on opposite ends of the world. So it's what I call the classic battle of the mind and the heart.
Wow, yeah.
The sun's going to tell you to do one thing. Your moon's telling you the complete opposite. So on the inside, you feel completely different than what you're putting out on the outside.
Do you think and this is a touchier subject for sure, but do you think people with like borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder, is there some of this at play? Or is that more of like a straight up science, like there's an issue with your brain or something?
I feel like I would say that there is a little bit at play, but I feel like that's more of specifically how your brain is hardwired. The effects of the energy that's coming through the universe is going to travel differently because of the astrological lineup. So I feel like it's more of a human factor than a universe factor that makes it with the personality disorder.
Okay.
So I'd imagine someone with multiple personalities, they're all going to be under the same sun sign.
Yeah.
And so they're all going to have that same kind of sun sign essence to what it is.
I think the metaphor of like that energy or that intent, as light going through filters, that's a really powerful metaphor. Just how many filters is that light going through?
So commonly you have, and for the sake of astrology, your sun and the moon are considered planets. So you have 12 active planets, or you have 10 active planets, 2 active comets, and then you have 12 houses.
Wait, so is Pluto not counted anymore?
Oh, yeah, it's in there. It's in there. It's considered a planet.
We always got to go back to Pluto because, look, they shafted us, man. They taught us what the planets were, and then right when we came of age, they took it away from us.
Just snatched it from us.
Okay, it's one thing if I never, like, gave a shit about planets, but that's, like, a serious topic you learn from preschool to, like, 3rd grade.
Yeah, and then just take it away.
It's like, okay, so what is human knowledge if we can just arbitrarily, like...
demote it like that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got off topic. Okay, back to astrology. So we were asking a little... didn't mean to cut you off, dude.
Nah, I feel like that was pretty much the...
Yeah, so we were talking about, like, how you got into it. Like, what were your resources for using to learn?
One really good resource that I use, it's a website called Cafe Astrology. That's where I got my birth chart from. And then from there, they have a long definition of specifically your sun being in conjunction with another planet, your sun having this aspect, and then it gets really in depth with what your personality and who you are according to just your birth chart. And then from that, you can take, okay, well, I know, for instance, your Mars is going to be your initiative, that spark, that energy, that drive that you have. And then your Venus is going to be your idea of love, and not necessarily in other people, but your favorite food, your favorite color, your favorite video game, your favorite movie. However you express that feeling of smittenness is going to come through that Venus directory.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's awesome.
Specifically, if you combine those two, Mars and Venus, that's when you're going to get your relationship you, because that's how you actively drive in what you feel like you love.
So the male and female Mars and Venus, that's not just astrology. That goes beyond. Even like when you look at the symbols for like the sexes, one of them is Mars and one of them is Venus, right? The arrow and then like the plus with the circle. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you don't, look up Mars Venus sign.
Or Austin Powers.
Yeah, or Austin Powers. God damn, was that a good set of movies right there? Like, I bet you he knew astrology. I bet he could tell you what sign. He was one of those guys who could tell you what sign you were.
Not Mike Myers, but specifically Austin Powers. He could tell you.
No, not Mike Myers. I mean, unless Mike Myers is cooler than I thought he was. I mean, he's Austin Powers. How could he not be?
Exactly.
But
we digress.
Is there... Okay. Yeah, we did. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I feel like you've satiated my hunger for knowledge about this topic. But if there's anything else you want the viewers to know, I definitely want you to tell them.
I will say that if I've said anything that has spark and interest, by all means, take the initiative to look it up on your own, because you are going to perceive what you're reading in one way, and only you know yourself the way that you know yourself. Stay tuned. I plan on doing a weekly kind of dive into astrology and focusing specifically on either the signs or the planet and their effects themselves. So we can learn a little more together that way.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right. Well, I'm Nick Strauss, and you are...
James Hughes.
And I am... Wait.
What?
All right. Signing off. This has been the B3 Podcast. Bitches.